We can join Rebecca Ritters, who's near Zikim in southern Israel, close to the border with Gaza. Welcome, Rebecca. What's happening?
Well, just prior to coming on air, actually, Phil, there was another small volley of rockets coming from Gaza that were intercepted here in our area. But earlier today, just around 5 p.m. local time, Hamas attacked the city of Ashkelon. Now, they sent a message out warning that they were going to carry out this large attack, warning residents to evacuate because they were going to attack that city. They did so, and there was one hit. A hotel was hit. We've had no... the cries of somebody who can see rockets, but there appears to be a false alarm. And the hotel was hit, but we believe that there wasn't anybody in the hotel at the time. We have colleagues that had tried to stay in that hotel, and they were told that the hotel was not open at the moment, had been closed because of what's going on. So no reports of casualties, but the city was hit. What's happening around this area in particular, and as far as I'm aware, all along the border with Gaza, is a really significant troop build-up and hardware build-up. Now, we don't know exactly what the plan there is, but it does appear that Israel is readying itself for what looks like a very big offensive. Everyone expects it to be a big ground offensive, and certainly that's what it looks like. There is big, heavy machinery, about 100 meters, 150 meters in another area over there. I can see some rockets, Phil. These rockets are quite low. Can you still hear me there, Phil?
Yes, absolutely.
Are you able to see those light
We can see those rockets, but if you need to end this at any point, then obviously just do so.
I'll let you know, thank you. But that's been happening basically all day, all afternoon, at relatively regular intervals. And of course, the airstrikes are continuing on Gaza as well. The Israelis have been pounding the Gaza Strip, pounding those Hamas, there's the siren, pounding those Hamas targets. As they say, the civilian death toll will be rising significantly, in fact, rising so quickly that the health authorities are not able to keep up with the numbers. So I have no new numbers for you, Phil.
Very close to me.
Okay, I think we do have to take cover now, Phil, okay. I'm afraid.
All right, thanks for that.
Actually,
so that's Rebecca Ritters in southern Israel, near the border with Gaza. Right, we're going back to Rebecca Ritters near the border with Gaza now. Rebecca, when we left you just a couple of minutes ago, there was rocket fire in the sky. Things are calming down?
Yeah, that has passed now, but the reason I thought we perhaps better take cover is it was actually quite low, much lower than we have been seeing in the last couple of days. Where we're positioned, actually, the rockets and the missiles, they rarely make landfall in this area, but what we have to look out for, of course, is the falling shrapnel from the interceptions from the Iron Dome. So, excuse me, but that has been basically happening all day. That's what's going on here, back and forth, pretty much all day. But as I was talking about before we got cut off was, of course, the troop build-up that is happening and what seems to be Israel's next move, which looks to be like it's going to be a very big offensive, potentially a ground invasion. That's what everyone's expecting. Of course, we have no official word of what they're going to be doing, but by the looks of the hardware build-up that we're seeing in the area, it definitely seems as though they're preparing for something very big.
And what sort of hardware are you seeing? I appreciate you're not a military expert, but you're seeing tanks and lorries?
Tanks, we're seeing anti-mine tanks as well. We're seeing these really big diggers that are anti-mine diggers. It looks like they're to manoeuvre, to bulldoze potentially houses, potentially buildings. I'm not exactly sure what they're used for, but all of these machines in great numbers. And we're also seeing, of course, a huge troop build-up. We know that 300,000 reservists have been called up. That's no small number, though they do have a large area to cover. We're looking at a potentially multi-front confrontation here. We've seen this afternoon also some more rockets coming in from Lebanon. Now, they were intercepted. There were no casualties reported, but it is keeping tensions. It's keeping definitely the military establishment very much on edge. They're really looking towards the northern border as well and looking towards anything that might happen within the West Bank. So, you know, the 300,000 troops being stationed all across the country. But many of them, you know, most of them, I hazard to guess, would be stationed around here and are preparing for what Benjamin Netanyahu promises is a very strong counterattack and could drag this war on for many weeks.
Okay, thanks for that, Rebecca. Rebecca Aritas in southern Israel. Well, Carlo Masala is a security expert and professor of international politics at the Bundeswehr University in Munich. Welcome to DW. Let's talk, first of all, about Israel's response. Is it likely to be limited to airstrikes, or are you expecting a ground war?
No, I expect a ground war in the next hours and the next days to come, because the declared goal, political goal, is the destruction of the military wing and the political party of Hamas, and this can only be done by ground forces. So therefore, we will see a massive ground invasion in the days to come.
So, a ground war in a small area, a particularly densely populated area. This is not going to be a traditional war, is it? This is going to be urban warfare.
Absolutely. This is going to be urban warfare. This is a three-dimensional war. What I mean by this is, you have to expect that the enemy is attacking you from above, from below, from the front and from behind. You can't enter with mechanized vehicles. You have to go in by infantry, and you have to fight basically for house and house. It's going to be a long war. It's going to be extremely bloody and messy.
So Israel has said that it is not targeting civilians. But given the density of the population there, it is hard to see how civilians can avoid being hit. And one wonders then if this is all preparation for the ground war. If you level enough blocks of flats to give the enemy nowhere to hide, then if you're sending troops in on the ground, not in tanks but on foot, that makes your job much easier.
No, I mean, it doesn't make your job much easier. The air campaign is a preparation for the ground war. Israel has asked all civilians to leave Gaza. As far as I know, Egypt will only accept 2,000 per day. And there are 2.2 million people living in Gaza. So it won't be possible that all the civilians are going to leave, will be able to leave Gaza before the ground invasion starts. And then secondly, we know from previous campaigns that Hamas is using civilians as a kind of human shields. So therefore, the ground invasion is the alternative to bombing from above Gaza into rubbles. So, which means basically the chances for civilians to survive is much higher than if Israel would rely on a purely air campaign. But definitely we have to expect that also civilians are getting killed in this ground invasion.
Is there more? Bearing in mind that this ground invasion is still theoretical at this stage, hasn't begun yet, is there more that Israel could be doing to prevent against civilian deaths?
Well, actually, Israel did what it could do to prevent massive civilian casualties. I mean, asking people to leave Gaza, in the framework of the air campaign, doing roof knocking, which basically means that you drop a small bomb on the roof of a skyscraper or a house, not causing much damage, but basically alerting the civilians to leave the building, because a quarter after that, the real bomb will come into this house. sending short messages to the civilians in Gaza where they can go in order to survive. I mean, places where the Israeli Air Force doesn't attack. There is not much more Israel can do to prevent casualties, civilian casualties, once the ground invasion starts.
Right.
And bear in mind, Hamas will prevent civilians from leaving Gaza because they need them as human shields.
As you've been speaking, we've been looking at live pictures of the destruction in Gaza. Let's take a step back now. And the question that everyone is asking is, how did Hamas manage to launch attacks and incursions on such a massive scale, undetected by US or Israeli intelligence?
Well, this is the $6 million question for the time being. I don't think that the Israeli security services didn't notice that there was something going on, but I think that they took the wrong conclusions, or even worse, they alerted the Israeli politics and they ignored the advice of the security service, or basically the analysis of the security service. One way or the other, this is a massive political failure and a massive failure of the Israeli security services.
And the other end of that question, of course, is how did Hamas manage to build up the resources to launch this unprecedented attack? How did they get hold of the weapons in order to achieve this?
Well, first of all, we haven't seen, from what we know from pictures and videos, we haven't seen any weapons used in this attack which we didn't know that they're in the possession of Hamas. So usually they get their weapons through tunnels, smuggling, mostly through Egypt, provided by Iran. But this is something which goes on for decades. So we don't know about any new types of weapons they used. So the weapons they used were the weapons we know Hamas was in possession of. But what was surprising was the coordination of this attack, because this attack happened from land, from air, and from sea. And the interplay between those three dimensions is something which is usually unknown for Hamas.
Right. Let's zoom out now. Is there a risk that the severity of Israel's response could draw the wider region into this conflict?
Well, I don't think that this will depend on the severity of Israel's response. I mean, there might be the opening, to save Hamas, there might be the opening of a second front in the north of Israel by Hezbollah. And then Israel will face a two-front war, which will pose enormous challenges for Israel. Secondly, imagine that Israel is able to crush Hamas and to defeat Hezbollah. There might be an Iranian reaction, and then we are in an uncontrollable situation in the whole region. So this conflict has really the potential to spill over to more actors in the region, to more players in the region, and become a kind of uncontrollable.
It's very clear. Good talking to you. Thanks for talking us through that. Carlo Masala from Bundeswehr University, Munich.
You're welcome.